Hey, this is Jen from Midnight Sky Fibers, and I'm here to tell you today about super bulky yarn. For those of you who don't know me, Midnight Sky Fibers is a natural dye studio where I make naturally dyed yarns and fibers using only non-toxic dyes and mordants. So, super bulky yarn. For those of you who've heard of it but aren't sure quite exactly what it is, it's the thickest yarn out there. It can be anywhere from, say, a ½ inch across to several inches across, but encompasses anything that doesn't fit into the finer yarn weight categories. Most of the super bulky yarn out there that you see if you just go search Google for super bulky yarn is going to be hand spun. There are some commercial people out there who make super bulky yarn as well. But it tends to be fairly simple, like very thick strands of wool yarn, which is great for different projects depending on what you want to do. It's especially good for, say, very large felted oven mitts or, very, very thick slippers, very, very thick hats. It's generally best for projects that you don't need tons and tons of flexibility out of, and where you can get away with using very, very large needles. So a basic drop stitch scarf would be another good example of it. Most super bulky yarn comes in fairly low yardage, anywhere from like 10 to 40 yards would be pretty typical, especially for people who are hand spinning the yarn, because you can't really fit that much yarn on a spinning wheel when it's 1 inch across. So here's a couple of examples of super bulky yarn. So this is a super bulky yarn. You can see that it's as thick as a finger, and some of the plies are as thick as a thumb across. This is just 2 plies of naturally dyed wool dyed with fustic, which is a pretty cool plant-based dye. Gives a really nice golden color to it. So when you compare the super bulky yarn to a fairly typical bulky weight yarn dyed in fairly similar colors, you can see that this particular one's almost twice as thick. So trying to substitute a pattern between the two of them wouldn't work very well. So here's another example of a super bulky yarn. You can see it has great coils spun into it, which make for a really interesting fabric since they're interspaced every couple of yards. This is the type of yarn that I used for one of my little wrap patterns. It's called the Butterfly Shrug, which is available on Midnight Sky Fibers for download. And it's the best part about bulky yarns that are this thick, but not super thicker, is that you can get away with using knitting needle size in the teens. Once you start using knitting needles that are like size 35 or 50, then you're knitting with broomsticks, and that gets really hard on the hands, and the patterns available for it are really limited. Super bulky yarns where they're 2 or 3 stitches to the inch instead of 1 stitches to the inch have a lot of patterns available for it. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed learning about super bulky yarn.